Hey, Alpha fam, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Commission. Today on Alpha Commission, of course, we want to go over all of the green on the charts. It has been a great day, or at least opening morning, for not only the stock market but also for crypto, as the projections for inflation have actually come in much lower than what was expected. And so you do see, of course, that we've been talking about this CPI data that would come in, and that this would be even more significant than the Federal Reserve's decision earlier. And what I was saying is that if the CPI data beat the expectation, that you should expect some type of bullishness in the market, irrespective of the volatility that we've been having this week, and that this would be a critical moment for the chart. And as you see here, the last inflation piece of data that we got was 9.1. The expectation was 8.7, and what the market got was 8.5. That's bullish, okay? That's bullish because it means there's less inflation, and less inflation means that the Fed will have to will have to increase interest rates less than what the market expected. It's about relative values. It's not about absolute values, okay? We know that inflation is bad. We know that the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates is bad, but the market expected even worse, right? And so that means we got something that was a bit better today, which means that the market can breathe a sigh of relief, and that frees up the market to potentially have pumps. If you understand that dynamic, then you're all caught up. You understand why Bitcoin and crypto had kind of a God candle pump this morning when the CPI data came in better than expected. So let's just go over to the charts, and we can see, of course, that stocks are not open. And so if we look at the pre-market, what we can see here, or they may just be opening up. So let's just see them. You see this actual pump on the chart right here, where you see this huge gap. Stocks were down here, and they pumped all the way up, right? So let's look at the SPY. Same thing, huge gap. They just pumped, and now they're above that daily 200, which they first had as resistance, but now it's actually where the market has decided to put the price at kind of a support. And we'll see if that support holds, or if this is a fake out and we get a drop down. If we get a drop down, then what we might be talking about, for example, on the S&P 500 mini futures, would be something in line with perhaps 4,000, right? Around 4,000 on the S&P mini futures. However, because of that God pump due to the CPI data, we have just broken the expectations. We're above that 200 daily EMA, and this positions us quite bullishly. And we just have to see if the market is going to try to take that back, take part of it back, or if this is going to set up a squeeze play to the upside, which previously we were looking at a potential squeeze play to the downside, perhaps in this supportive area, this zone that I've marked out in green. But now we're talking about potentially a squeeze play into this area that I've marked in red as our potential resistance up here around perhaps 4,300. That's 4,300 for the S&P 500 mini futures. And as go stocks, so will go Bitcoin. What we see on the BTC chart right now, of course, is another one of these God candles, very similar to when Jerome Powell announced that the Federal Reserve would be increasing interest rates only by 75 basis points over here, instead of the 100 basis points that much of the market expected. And I think similarly today, the market expected that the CPI data, that inflation data would be worse than expected, but in fact, it beat expectations. It's better than expected. And so this gives us a new opportunity Whereas you can see our wick down here, we were losing that wedge, right? That bullish accumulation wedge, we were losing it. Now we have actually just pumped all the way to the top of it. And what the rest of this day will be about, perhaps what the rest of this week will be about, is seeing if we can close bullishly above that limit of 24,000 that I had mentioned is the critical top limit that we must beat. And yesterday I was talking about how the previous day we were right there as well, but we had dropped down and been put into a very weak position. You can see at support here on the 200 EMA on the 4 hour, but now we have pumped back up to our resistance at 24,000, and we just haven't been able to break it. So this God candle, even with all the energy of the market behind it, it wasn't able to break that 24,000, let's call it 250 limit there, which I had a red box because that was a sell zone previously, which worked out perfectly. And then I had this momentum preservation zone where if we had lost this zone, on a daily close, that we would potentially be squeezed to the downside. We did not lose that zone. We held it. And so for yet another day, after just almost 2 weeks of this, right? It's been almost 2 weeks of hanging out in this area. We lived another day, and with that bullish news on the CPI inflation data, we actually have pumped, right? So, guys, not sure how stocks are going to take this because the stock market is very toppy. There's going to be a limitation to how far they can squeeze unless we're literally entering a new bull run, unless we're literally entering a new, just a bull market. There has to be a limit on how high price can go. And what I suggested is that we do have that volatility that was playing out on the 4 hour. It did work its way out into this area, and now it's being extended. So we're actually seeing that 4 hour signal be extended to the upside in a pretty rapid way. But more importantly, we have the signal on the daily still contracting. It hasn't finished contracting. We are getting some liftoff on the actual, band itself, but the EMA for this volatility band here hasn't caught up with it. And so we would like to see them meet. We would like to see them cross to understand whether or not this move is going to continue with volatility in the upward direction or in the downward direction. So that daily signal has not quite been initiated yet, but the 4 hour and also that 8 hour signal, right? We can pop over to the 8 hour. They are expanding to the upside. Okay, look at this. The 8 hour is expanding to the upside. And so that does that mean that the fears that we had about this signal, which has played out, right? 8 times in the last, half year. Has this signal finally flipped? Are we going to pump to the upside? Whereas every single one of these other signals has pumped to the downside, has dropped to the downside in amounts equal to 10% all the way up to 45%, with around 20 to 30% on average. Could we get a similar type of volatility push to the upside as this signal is expanding to the upside with our current orientation? Well, guys, to tell you the truth, I think the daily signal is going to eventually override, just like the 8 hour overrode the 4 hour signal. The daily is saying that it's going to have its own plans, and we will have to wait to see how that daily signal crosses, which I just pointed out. And a lot of this is going to be determined by whether or not BTC Bitcoin can finally break past this 24,000 250 zone, and convincingly past a 24,500 ish. And then we're also going to have to defeat this wedge, because there's another resistance. If we are making an ascending wedge, there's another resistance, and you can see some of these EMAs pressing down on us, including on the daily the 89. right, in this zone between 25,000 to 26,000, which could be a possible limitation or perhaps a pullback zone, even if we do pop up bullishly. And so, guys, we're waiting for that. This is just kind of a repeat, just kind of a rerun of what we had the other day with this candle right here, right? On the 8th, we had this candle that just pumped up to the top of our wedge. We've again had a candle that has popped up to the top of our wedge. And so, guys, is this a fake out? Are we going to get a pullback? Are stocks going to decide that they are too toppy and that they need to drop? I'm sorry that this one is taking so long to resolve, but the resolution of this move, the resolution of this volatility and of these patterns has not concluded yet. We have neither broken convincingly out of that 24,000, 24,500, dollar area that we need to convincingly break out of, and we have not broken under convincingly that $23,000 critical area, right, that I said that we needed to break under in order to just lose our momentum to the downside. But the one thing that we can say for certain is that we have preserved our momentum to the upside. Do you understand? And this is a key point. We have not lost our momentum to the upside. We are there. We're still there. We still have a fighting chance to have a nice move to the upside. And until we lose that critical zone of 23,000 convincingly with at least a solid 4 hour or 8 hour candle underneath these formations, then I cannot be bearish, guys. I cannot be bearish. I've had these same standards ever since last Friday, and this market has just been taking us sideways for days and days and days. We've just been going sideways, a couple fake outs to the downside, a couple fake outs to the upside, and now we're reaching the end of this wedge, and a resolution will be forced eventually. We will be forced by the market to make a decision. There is the possibility that with the weekend coming up that we could be breaking out in one direction during the weekend, and there could be shenanigans that kind of 24/7 exchange takes over the professional exchanges, where the professional exchanges will be closed for the weekend. They close for the nights and holidays and weekends. And so will the 24/7 exchanges try to fake us out on the weekend? If we don't break out before then, maybe the 24/7 exchanges are going to take us on a wild ride, and then we'll have to wait till next week to figure it out. But until then, if we do have a breakout, that comes either later today or perhaps on Thursday, then we should get a sense of direction and a sense of resolution in the market, especially if we close daily candles either above this 24,500 or below this, let's just say 22,900. And let's go ahead and see if some of these indicators agree with my assessment. And yep, a lot of these are saying, 24,250, 22,900, 23,000. So we do have a lot of similar numbers playing out here. And so I would just stick to that assessment. If we popped over to some of these altcoins, we can see that they are popping off. For example, Kadena just did make an incredible recovery here. Look at this. Look at this. It looks like about 10 to 15%. Yeah, we had a 15% God candle on Kadena as this market has just pumped. And of course, we are reaching that resistance zone that I have marked out for a long time, according to this candle over here. Just like BTC, it's basically come back up to that pump zone. It wasn't able to push through. And so we can kind of extend this kind of sell zone over. And that would have been a natural point to take some profits if you had caught that buy zone that I did recommend in the last video that I talked about Kadena, that would be a good place to buy back in. And I think if you had bought there, you would have been quite happy with that 15 to 16% pump if you were able to catch the top. That doesn't mean that this is done pumping. I did suggest that I do think that we have a stretch goal up to this potentially up to this $2.65 zone, perhaps even higher, as we have some candles up here that could potentially be a pullback area, if we are just able to push through this. But I'm still bullish on this asset. I do think that the market has a bit of a ways to squeeze out, but we don't have confirmation on Bitcoin yet. What we do have is a very good look on Ethereum as it is pushing through some of those resistance areas of its own. This is a very bullish look on Ethereum as it's just kind of skyrocketing. Let's go ahead and see what type of percentage that Ethereum has done. Around 10%. So Kadena beating Ethereum, but Ethereum beating Bitcoin, and Bitcoin still being the lagger, right? Bitcoin still looking quite sluggish compared to Ethereum. On the other hand, Kadena actually was not able to make a higher high right here the way that Ethereum did. So in some sense, Ethereum looks more bullish than Kadena, which may continue to retrace. So you just have to be aware that this is not a higher high on Kadena, whereas Ethereum did have a higher high. And also, Bitcoin is just basically having a triple top right now. So the market is not in agreement. I think that we are going to just have to let this day play out. You understand those zones and the volatility that I've been talking about on Bitcoin for over a week now. Those things are in play. They have been initiated, but we don't have a resolution to the actual to the actual patterns that are on the chart, and we don't have a clear direction, but we have maintained momentum, and we have maintained a bit of bullishness in the market at least for another day. So we're not in danger right now. And these type of accumulation, kind of Wyckofian, accumulation patterns. There's some of them that have inverse head and shoulders that have been popping off on a lot of these coins. Those are going to probably be or continue to be a safe play as long as Bitcoin holds above 23,000. And if Bitcoin can hold that area, above 23,000, in a secure way, then some of these altcoins that haven't popped off the way that Kadena have may still have a chance to go. So let's go ahead and just take a look at ADA. And ADA being one of the slower movers, kind of moves along with stocks a little bit more conservatively. Um, you can see it has a bullish look of its own on the chart. I do have to realign this trend here. There we go. It's all lined up back up, and you can see that. Not sure why that one's there. You can see that this box here that we have. Um, well, sorry, I guess that line was out of position. But anyway, we have come back into that zone with with our sell box approaching here. So ADA even lagging behind Bitcoin. Um, has that kind of lower high look that Kadena has, but since this move isn't done, we don't know where this is going to stop. If we start seeing these coins breaking their previous highs and breaking their range highs, that's going to suggest that they might be trying to go for their stretch goals. And so, if this market does decide to be bullish, and if we do have that volatility play on Bitcoin just pumping the market, and if the stock markets aren't crashing, if they're going sideways or up, then there's a good chance that a lot of these altcoins are going to be able to achieve these stretch goals that we've kind of put out there for them. And let me go over to Bitcoin CME chart. And yeah, you can see quite convincingly that it is popping back up. It is meeting resistance here on the 4 hour, on the 300 EMA. It was lifted up by the 200 EMA and the 300 MA and all these other EMAs below it. My gosh, look at that. There was just a ton of support in this area where I had my green box. And so we are getting that pump, but we're not at the top of the formation. We haven't convincingly popped up here. And so this limitation still applies on this triple top, even on the professional exchanges. So we're just going to have to monitor this situation. But the formation is still alive. It's just being extended out. We still have broken down from that teardrop. And even if you tried to extend it and ignored this piece, like some people are drawing the SPY. Again, remember this is a psychological tool, right? It doesn't have to be one way. But if you did this, for people who are drawing it like this, they might see it be breaking back into the teardrop. Personally, I'm going to leave it like this, and what I prefer to see is just, okay, we broke down from the teardrop. Maybe the market has bottomed out, and then maybe we just pump, and then we have to claim this wedge to the top side. And that's what I will be looking for. Jumping over to stocks again, yeah, you do see some pullback on the NASDAQ, on the NAS 100 here, right at that resistance line that I've had marked out for a couple months now. And so we are just facing that downward resistance. And if we did push through where I would suggest that we could push through onto the NAS 100, perhaps 13,600, right? 13,700 as kind of a limitation before we had a pullback. However, again, like stocks, just like ADA, just like Kadena, making a little bit of a lower high there, they haven't really put in anything convincing to say that we're breaking the potential turnaround here. Even if that's a very bullish candle, there still is the possibility that we have these pullbacks to these lower zones that I've been talking about, and then we may even chop down lower. So we are going to have to be on stock watch to make sure that the stock market is behaving in a bullish way. We can't just look at Bitcoin. The stock market will be a limitation on Bitcoin, but again, kind of our order of operations here is you're going to be, if you're going to be bullish, okay, and that's up to you to determine, but if you're going to be bullish, then you probably want to look for those Wyckoff kind of accumulation triangle, kind of inverse head and shoulders kind of setups, especially ones that have God candles, on the left side, right, kind of institutional candles, as opposed to a whole bunch of choppiness price action on the left, because that means that they're probably going to have less resistance if they push up, so higher chance to make gains. And then you're going to be watching to see if Bitcoin can put in some 4 hour candles or perhaps an 8 hour candle or close the daily above 24,000, 250-ish to 500-ish. And then, if the stock market isn't turning around, right, you're going to want to pay attention to all of those things. And if all of those things are in alignment, then most likely, you know, on a probabilistic, consideration, not financial advice, but that's probably going to be the best likelihood for a good move in this market. We do see the dollar coming down. I did suggest that we were likely to head into that 103 zone. The market did not decide to keep the dollar down into that area. But once we've broken a trend like this, once we've made a little bit of a lower low off of these lower highs, there's a good chance that we're going to revisit these levels. And so even if we have a temporary spike in the dollar, even if we have some resistance to fight, perhaps we are going to come down to these areas again, or explore some sideways action. So we're going to keep our eye on the dollar. Obviously, a strong dollar is bad for assets, stocks, and crypto. It's just some type of resistance that we face. And then we also have the VIX, our kind of volatility on the stocks market. It did dip down almost to that heavenly trading zone. We could have a bull market if the VIX gets into this area, and it's just dipping its toe in the water, but unfortunately it is popping up a little bit. But having explored down here, I think it might return. What we don't want to see is the VIX, strongly holding this trend line and then pushing up. That would make trading much more difficult for us. Again, the dollar and the VIX going up is bad for us. And then let's look at USDT just to see how the market is using their money. And look at this, a lot of money just got dumped into the crypto market. Okay, so a lot of money went here from in USDT, and they spent it all on different cryptos. So people are investing, but you do see a little bit of a double bottom right here, which could suggest perhaps a bounce. We really haven't put any significant candles in, so we have 2 hours even for a 4 hour to be set in, so plenty of time for this thing to go either way. But it does look, positive for the market. And so, guys, we're going to continue to monitor this stuff. Just wanted to do a quick update. Again, there's no reason to be bearish right now. There's absolutely no reason to be bearish right now. The news that came in today was good. The volatility is being, question is being put off for another day. We're just going to be waiting for our confirmations this week, either today or tomorrow or Friday. And then, if we don't get the confirmation, by tomorrow or Friday, then maybe there might be a little bit of a fake out on the weekend, some type of weekend shenanigans, when the liquidity is lower. But we will find out some type of resolution, most likely by the earliest next week, and perhaps even by the end of the day today. Okay, guys, I'll keep you posted. That was your alpha for the day. Stay safe and happy trading.